on the illusion. Is Ryan Reynolds trying to shade Justin Baldoni in his latest movie, Mayday? It certainly looks like it. And did he just reach a new low stalking regular people on social media? This is really disturbing.
Welcome back. This is the space where we take what's being framed online as a comeback narrative and hold it up to the light to see what's actually confirmed versus what's simply being repeated. Because this week, what a lot of outlets are calling the start of a Ryan Reynolds image, rehab kicked into gear. And the distance between the story being pushed and the story people are actually debating online is wide enough that it's hard to know whether to call it clever messaging or just convenient timing. Per the narrative reportedly coming out of his camp, Ryan Reynolds views himself as a partner who stood by his wife through a rough stretch. Online, though, and inside unsealed court filings tied to the ongoing case, a different picture is being alleged. One where critics claim he was far more involved behind the curtain than the public story lets on. Worth saying plainly, these are claims made in filings and amplified across social media, not proven facts, and the case is still active. One version sounds like a feel-good movie plot. The other is what's being alleged in legal paperwork that's been reviewed for this breakdown. Let's lay out the timeline first, because context tends to get skipped in favor of the tidier version. It's been widely reported that Reynolds hasn't had a film in theaters in roughly 2 years. That much isn't in dispute. Aviation Gin has quietly vanished from his Instagram bio, and multiple reports say the Oregon distillery shut its doors. Several outlets have reported that Paramount pulled back on a handful of his attached projects. Sources describe his household as shouldering heavy legal and crisis PR costs connected to Blake Lively's ongoing litigation, though exact numbers haven't been independently verified. And Maximum Effort, the marketing venture built around his reputation as a culturally fluent businessman, reportedly has a lineup of projects listed with major studios and streamers. But as of now, none of them have been publicly confirmed as actually in production. That's the picture as it's currently being reported. Into that picture landed a batch of quotes given to a tabloid outlet this week, painting him as steady, self-assured, well-regarded, and on the edge of a bounce back. And a lot of people online caught the framing almost instantly and started dissecting it. Here's the interesting part. The quotes don't fully line up with one another, and that mismatch might say more than the words themselves. One person, identified only as a Hollywood executive, reportedly claimed Reynolds has made people wary of him over the years because, in this person's phrasing, he's quite powerful in Hollywood, and he knows it. A different source, described as a studio executive, allegedly said some studios are pulling back, not out of personal dislike, according to the account, but because of his asking price and the media attention attached to the lawsuit. That same insider apparently described him as really pleasant to work with. An interesting word choice, considering separate reporting elsewhere has featured unverified claims from anonymous industry voices painting a very different on-set temperament, including alleged friction with co-stars and pushback on creative notes from people like Eugene Levy. Important caveat. These are competing, unconfirmed characterizations from unnamed sources on multiple sides, none of which can be independently verified here. Still, the internet noticed the contrast fast, with plenty of commenters guessing the pleasant line reads like a planted quote meant to smooth things over right on schedule. That's audience opinion, not a claim being made here, but it's an opinion getting a lot of traction this week. Now, according to people described as close to Reynolds, his own stance is reportedly this. He doesn't see his conduct as having threatened his career. He apparently views himself as someone who supported his wife through something hard. These same sources claim he believes the bigger professional fallout has landed on Blake's side rather than his own, and that he still holds plenty of goodwill within the industry. And supposedly, he believes another Deadpool installment, or a well-received comedy or action film, would be enough to bring audiences fully back on his side. Worth pausing on that last point, because if the sourcing checks out, it's a genuinely revealing stance. The assumption that one good film is enough seems to treat audience hesitation as purely about screen absence. And a lot of online pushback rejects that framing outright, pointing to the unsealed documents, the messages, and details that have surfaced about the editing process on It Ends With Us. Whether that pushback is fair is frankly still an open question and a matter of public opinion, not a settled one. But it's the opinion fueling most of the current conversation. Online critics, and again, this lands squarely in opinion territory, not confirmed reporting, have taken to calling this stance outright denial. Whether that label is fair is debatable, but here's the argument being made that Reynolds' actual involvement in the It Ends With Us production, while publicly cast as a supportive spouse staying out of the spotlight, a narrative reportedly shaped in part by Blake's publicist, may have gone deeper than what's been acknowledged.
And yesterday, Blake and Ryan went to a Wrexham match together. So why did Ryan pretend that his wife wasn't there?
According to what's alleged in the unsealed emails and texts, alleged being the key word, some of the specific claims circulating, which remain unproven allegations connected to active litigation, include that he was more hands-on with editing decisions than publicly stated, that a replacement editor was brought in mid-process, and that private messages cited in the filings contain harsh language directed at a colleague. None of this should be treated as settled fact. It's what's alleged in unsealed court records and spread widely across social platforms in a case that hasn't concluded. If those allegations turn out to be accurate, some commentators argue, that's not simply a messaging issue a strong sequel can fix. It's more of a credibility question, one that box office totals alone might not resolve. That's a popular read online right now. Whether it's the right one is genuinely up to viewers to decide since the litigation is still unfolding. It's also worth pointing out how this ties back to the maximum effort persona. The whole identity built around Reynolds being the guy who reads viral culture and turns chaos into content quicker than anyone else. Online conversation has increasingly drawn a contrast between that persona and the far more serious claims tied to the lawsuit, with plenty of people arguing, and again, this is speculation, that the instincts behind a marketing empire might look very different once applied to a real legal dispute involving real people. Speculation, not something asserted as fact here. Now, on to the Blake and Taylor thread, which picked up fresh attention this week through independent entertainment reporting. And precision matters here, because it's the only responsible way to handle it. A source described as close to Blake Lively reportedly told a tabloid, in paraphrase, that Blake has been present since the earliest days of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's relationship and knows details that have never surfaced publicly. That's an anonymous claim, filtered through tabloid reporting about a private friendship, worth treating with appropriate skepticism. This claim came up in a previous breakdown, but this week it arrived alongside news of an upcoming interview with Justin Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, who has made a legal declaration alleging that Blake Lively pressured Taylor Swift, specifically that she threatened to release private messages unless Taylor publicly backed her during the Baldoni dispute. Underlining this clearly, this is an allegation from one side of an active lawsuit. It isn't a finding of fact, and Blake Lively's team has pushed back on parts of the broader case throughout. Friedman has reportedly been questioned directly about the "Blake knows everything" remark, and people involved in that interview are describing his answers as significant, though what that actually means is unclear until the interview airs. Until then, this is speculation stacked on an unproven legal claim, and it should be approached with exactly that level of caution. Here's a thought worth entertaining, strictly as hypothetical. If any of it were accurate, what position would that put Taylor Swift's team in? Her camp is widely considered one of the most tightly managed operations in entertainment. Nearly every public move is typically calculated. A scenario involving a sworn claim of pressure from a former close friend, paired with a source hinting that friend holds undisclosed private information, would be genuinely tricky for any PR team to navigate, assuming the claims hold up. That "assuming" is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. Online reaction to this thread has been intense, with a lot of speculation filling gaps where confirmed information simply doesn't exist yet. Worth naming outright, much of what's circulating here is theory and inference from commentators and fan accounts, not documented fact. Meanwhile, there's another person central to the "It Ends With Us" story worth focusing on for reasons that have nothing to do with speculation. Jacqueline, the editor reportedly brought on in part because of her own history as a domestic violence survivor, who has said she built certain scenes drawing on that lived experience. According to her own account, shared this week in an interview, much of her work ultimately didn't make it into the final cut. That's her own description of her professional experience, not an allegation about anyone else's conduct. She's said, in her own words, that she hasn't been able to bring herself to rewatch the interview, describing herself as being in her head about it. Worth sitting with that, because whatever else is contested in this story, her described experience, pouring real personal history into a project only to see much of that work left out, has landed with a lot of viewers, regardless of where they stand on everything else. Whatever the comeback narrative is trying to accomplish, it doesn't appear to leave room for stories like hers, and plenty of online commentary has picked up on that gap. There's also a comparison a lot of commenters have made this week between Reynolds' situation and Johnny Depp's. Depp's upcoming film is widely discussed as a potential return vehicle, and the logic many online point to is fairly blunt. In Hollywood, when a film performs well financially, industry doors tend to reopen. Not necessarily because of any resolution about what did or didn't happen, but because box office success tends to reset the conversation. That's an observation about industry patterns, not a comment on the underlying allegations in either case. Some are speculating the same logic could apply to Reynolds, that a commercially successful project, whether a Deadpool sequel or a big comedy, could shift the industry conversation regardless of unresolved legal questions.
Ryan Reynolds has a movie coming out on Apple TV. It's premiering in September, and there's been a little bit of marketing around that movie, but Ryan has not pushed it himself. He hasn't even posted the trailer on his Instagram. I believe the reason for that is because Apple TV told him not to. They don't want all the haters to come out and ruin this movie for them.
Whether that's a cynical read on how Hollywood operates or simply an accurate one is, again, worth forming your own opinion on. It's a popular theory, not a guarantee, which loops back to that tabloid reporting and what people online are reading into it beneath the pleasant to work with and confident he'll bounce back language. The claim that powerful industry figures are afraid of Reynolds is, once more, one anonymous source's characterization, not something that can be verified here. But it's the line that's gained the most traction online this week, with many arguing that fear-based reputations tend to hold only as long as the underlying power looks unshakable, and that shuttered businesses, stalled projects, and lawsuit-related costs might be making that power look far less certain than it did a year ago. That's audience interpretation, not a confirmed industry read. Follow along and share this with anyone tracking the story, because they deserve a version that's upfront about what's confirmed, what's alleged, and what's just internet speculation, including Jacqueline's account, the still unreleased Friedman interview, the Taylor speculation, the "afraid of him" quote, and the Johnny Depp comparison, along with what people think it might mean. The goal here is separating what's actually documented from what's simply being claimed, with more care than a lot of coverage bothers with. Stick around because the Friedman interview is coming, and when it lands, we'll break down what's actually said versus what's just assumed. Because here's what keeps standing out. Ryan Reynolds is, by multiple reports, at the center of an active, unresolved legal case, with sources close to him allegedly framing his outlook as confident to the point of downplaying the situation's seriousness, while other anonymous voices describe industry hesitation around him. His reported plan is to let a successful project do the talking. Maybe that works. It's worked before for other public figures navigating controversy, for better or worse. But Jacqueline's account of not being able to rewatch her own interview is real, in her own words. The Friedman interview hasn't dropped yet. The source close to Blake has made a claim that hasn't been publicly substantiated, and whatever comes next is still sitting unreleased, waiting for its moment. We'll see what actually holds up, and what turns out to be nothing more than noise. Thank you so much for watching. If this one kept you hooked, make sure to like the video and subscribe to Clout Fallout so you don't miss the next update on this story.